Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our WebFOCUS Designer virtual user group. This is the theme of March. It's so great to see a lot of familiar names on the line, so thank you for taking the time. We've got a lot of great agenda items lined up for you today. We've got a lot of great speakers lined up for you today. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Shay Creech. We also have Porter Thorndike with us today. We also have Alex Homer with us today, and Dan Ortolani with us as well today. VJ and Angie are also on the line. They'll be answering some questions and fielding some comments if you guys have some throughout the meeting. Before we get started, a quick couple of housekeeping items for you guys. Just as a reminder, this session is being recorded. So you will have access to on-demand viewing within 24 hours of the session. At the end of the meeting, I will send out a link to our evaluation form. If you guys could please provide us your feedback, it's greatly appreciated so we can continue to improve on the user group program and the user groups that you guys attend. Also, Q&A. Please use the Q&A feature at the bottom to submit any questions that you have for our presenters throughout the session. We'll be taking those questions as they come in, so just submit them there and we will get them answered. All right, I am gonna go ahead and share my screen. There's a couple of things that I like to go over with you guys. If you have been with us for a while, you know the resource section, but just wanna refresh your memory. So just as a reminder, again, today's designer, this is our March theme of designer. And these are your presenters today. Again, Porter and Alex, you will be hearing from, seeing some presentations and some demos. As a reminder, IBI.com is back. If you guys have not been out there yet, feel free to head out there, check out the new website. We are constantly updating, we are constantly adding, we are constantly improving. So over the next few weeks and months, you will see this site really evolve, and a lot more of those assets and resources that you guys are looking for and have been used to finding will be out there. Right now, you are able to find all of the IBI products and solutions. We're adding new customer stories out there. Under the resource section, that is where you can find all of your on-demand user groups and Focus Fridays and other various webinars that we have done. So that's where all the on-demand viewing is located. And then under the events section, you will find all of the upcoming events that we have, user groups, Focus Fridays, webinars, things like that. You still have access to support. You can find that at the bottom of the page. And then again, as I said, I think a week or so ago, what's still coming, we are improving and adding more product documentation for all of our products. There will be some education and training information being added into the site. And then we will be linking the community, so you'll have easy access to the community. Just a reminder, upcoming events, as you see here, we are loading up the calendar. We have 2 more to add on here. If you are in the Kansas City or St. Louis area, we are coming to you in April. So be on the lookout for those 2 events being added to our landing page, probably hopefully by the end of today, if not early tomorrow. So Kansas City and St. Louis, we will see you guys April 11th and 12th. So mark your calendar and we'll get those registration pages up for you guys to get registered. We have all the Focus Fridays out here all the way up through July. And then we will also be adding our April virtual user groups on this page here too, so you guys can get registered for those. Just a reminder on community. Yes, guys, we are still on the TIBCO community. We are working to try to, again, pull us at least kind of our own domain off of it. But for the foreseeable future, we will still be linked to the TIBCO community. So we do have our own WebFOCUS portal out there, and we are, still coming with that enablement to allow you guys to better navigate and understand and work through the community. We do have we actually have 2 now, because I'm excited to announce the new Focus Friday group, but we have 2 groups out there that you guys can join under the group section. We have an IBI user group and we have a brand new Focus Friday group. So if you are in the community, hop over and join those groups. It's just another little kind of subset, smaller group where you guys can network and engage with other folks who are attending these events, as well as us, participate in discussions and surveys, register for the events when they're coming around, and just kind of be in the know. We also, in the Focus Fridays, the Walters will be posting their presentations from their Focus Fridays, so you'll be able to access those there as well. And we can also do that in the user group section, so you guys can find the presentations from the presenters. So be sure to join those two groups. And then now I'm going to quickly hand it over to Dan Ortolani to talk to you guys a little bit about Gold support and tech refresh.
Well, thank you, Shay, and I appreciate the opportunity to connect with the IBI user community today. Good day, everybody. Great to see such an awesome turnout. And as Shay said, you know, great to see the familiar names and actually a lot of new people on the call as well. I wanted to just touch base on a couple of topics. Many of you I see in the audience here today are Gold support customers, or maybe you're a Silver support customer who's considering Gold support, you know, because you have big initiatives coming up this year. Maybe you have a big upgrade you're planning, maybe you have a big expansion, and Gold support can be a critical service to help you along your way. What we've done in the past couple of weeks is to greatly enhance the services we're providing to our Gold customers. When we were a standalone company, IBI had the concept of a separate customer success team, and that team focused on not really technical activities, but doing, you know, health checks for our customers, supporting education initiatives, ensuring that the business stakeholders were getting value, maximum value from the investment in IBI technologies. And so when we moved to TIBCO and now the Cloud Software Group, what we decided to do was to kind of integrate that customer success service into our Gold support program. So when you license Gold support, you automatically get these additional services, you know, an assigned Gold Success Manager to provide all of those services that I mentioned. And of course, you continue to enjoy the technical services via the Gold Technical Architect and all the priority services that the team provides for you, the priority queuing, the priority in terms of new feature requests, the in-house environments, and of course the 24/7, 365 coverage, and the best SLAs that we offer, 1 hour response time for all cases. So again, this enhanced service is really designed to make sure that, you know, as you continue to be a Gold support customer, or again, if you're new to the Gold program, that we're going to make sure that you're getting the most out of your WebFOCUS and IBI software investment, and continue to drive that value, and continue to get the priority service. So stay tuned for this. The Gold customers, for the Gold customers, we're running a separate webinar for you next week. We'll explain more about this and be available to take your questions as well. Next slide, please. Tech refresh program. We've covered this on a number of our user group sessions. What I wanted to say today was, you know, September 30th is fast approaching. That's the date when our legacy IBI releases will be retired, meaning that 8206.32 and earlier, those releases will officially be retired on that date. So this means that it's imperative really for all of you in the audience who are on those legacy releases to, if you haven't done it already, you know, start planning your upgrade. And this service continues to be a key service for our customers who are moving to Release 9. And we encourage everybody to sign up for the program through this link that you see at the bottom of the page, or to just reach out to your account team, and they'll work with you on getting that going. What we will do is provide a free workshop where we'll assess the upgrade effort. And if you qualify, if your upgrade is low complexity and you qualify, we do a fixed price, fixed scope upgrade. If you're in the more complex category, then we provide a way for you to, move into a more standard SOW type of upgrade. But we do a lot of work up front. We assess what the remediation effort is going to be, and our goal is to get you to that release 9 plateau, right? And that platform, and from there you can choose to modernize or add additional functionality to your applications. So very important for everyone to have that sense of urgency, because we really, you could always license extended support for those legacy releases, but you'll have a lot more value out of your WebFOCUS environment if you can get to release 9, and we have a whole team that's ready to help you get there. So thank you, Shay, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dan, so much. All right, guys, like I said, you will receive a link after the meeting for the evaluation form. So if you wouldn't mind, please filling that out for us. And on that note, I am going to now turn it over to Alex, and we'll get started with all of the great content today. So Alex, the floor is yours.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Shay. I'm really excited to see so many people here. Super exciting. So yeah, let me show you guys a little bit about our 9.1 release in Designer. So yeah, let's see. So to start with, as I was thinking about some of the themes for this release, trying to, kind of tie it together into one narrative, something that kind of occurred to me was that we have actually made a lot of enhancements really across the board in Designer, affecting kind of the whole content creation process. So that goes from your charting and reporting stage all the way through to combining your content together into multiple different contexts. So both for browser-based output, which we will get into later with some very cool new interactions feature demonstration from Porter, as well as your desktop, kind of throwback desktop-based output in our new Designer document creator. So we kind of made some small enhancements across the board and some big enhancements also in other areas to kind of improve that experience throughout the entire WebFOCUS development experience. So you'll see a lot of areas had some impact on them in the 9.1 release in Designer. So to start with, going through some of the changes we made for single content items, we made some kind of nice usability enhancements to make it easier to understand, easier to use, and easier to create your content. So some enhancements that we did for reports include updates to our in-document analytics output format so that you can take reports in that format and use our updated modernized grid tool to kind of sort and reorder the information in those reports to maybe get a different perspective at runtime and kind of explore that information to maybe get more out of the report than you would just at face value. We also made it easier to navigate reports. We have the ability to freeze column headers in Excel output. So as soon as you generate that report, especially for long reports, it's nice to have that freezing behavior so that it's easier to kind of have that context of where you are and what you're looking at in your report as you scroll through it. And also it's kind of done from Designer, so you don't need to do it within that Excel context. We also made some charting enhancements to make it easier to understand your charts. So one of them is that if you have the narrative chart add-on, which uses EasyOp NLG natural language generation capabilities, will generate an automatic machine-generated description of the trends and information in your chart. So that can be helpful, especially for charts with lots of values, to kind of give a high-level overview of certain trends and certain important information in your charts. We also added some styling features that make it a little bit easier to understand your data. Added the ability in Designer to change the markers for line charts, and you can set them for each individual line. So you can highlight specific values or differentiate if you have lots of lines in your line charts. And we also added the ability to sort stack bars without breaking them into segments. So if you want, you can sort the bars by total value based on the entire height of the bar, or you can sort it by segments. You have the ability to do either one, depending on your preference. So we added some flexibility there, making it easier to understand your data based on what your needs are in your charts and reports. We also made a lot of enhancements to filters, and these are especially present if you are creating a designer page, so kind of like our dashboard, browser-based combined output. My favorite one is our updates to date filters, specifically for dynamic date ranges. It makes it a lot easier to filter based on date ranges compared to the current date. So you don't need to think about like, what are the dates that I want to include? It's not fixed. So it's like provides more flexibility in terms of not having to like update the filter multiple times. And it also like provides a more intuitive user experience. So whereas before we had kind of like a list of date ranges that you could select from, now we have a more flexible interface so that you can choose this year, this month, or you can do like the last 6 years, last 6 months. If you have date time data, you can do down to like the last 6 hours, last 6 minutes, whatever, which is great for streaming data. So that is like a very powerful enhancement to date and date time filters. We also have some nice enhancements to filters in general in Pages, the ability to add filters as whatever applicable control type you want to use. We have simplified date filter defaults, so you don't need to worry about like the date format, since there's a lot of date formats out there when you set your defaults. And we also have a dynamic option to show or hide the all value based on the number of values in the control. So you don't need to worry beforehand about how many values are going to be in this control. Do I want to turn the all option on or off? Is it going to make sense? You don't need to worry about that. It will not show if there's only one value, which would mean it's not applicable, and will show if there are multiple values. So that adds a little bit more flexibility in terms of creating your pages, and makes it a little bit easier for the page creator. Also, another big addition that we made is document mode in Designer. This is kind of a modernization of our document feature. Started with like what based on the feedback that we got are the most like important capabilities, and we'll be continuing to expand on this in future releases as well. But this will allow you to create PDF documents with Designer content, as well as info assist reports if you have those in your environment as well. And it has all the like basic document creation options. So you can add multiple items to the page, add multiple pages, resize and move around those items. You can also have some page configuration options, including like orientation and page size and that kind of stuff. There's like a car outside, it's honking. Also we handle overflow automatically and all that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of like a high level overview of the different options that we added, but I think you'll see as I get into the demo stage that we've made a lot of enhancements throughout the content creation workflow. So no matter kind of like what kind of content you're creating, probably have some enhancements that you'll be able to take advantage of in 9.1. So let me just swap over here. All right, cool. So I'll start with our reporting features. So I mentioned there was there's the IDA grid tool, and we also had the freeze stuff. So I've got here like a very long report that might be kind of hard to navigate, or it's a lot of data, so it might be hard to kind of like soak it all in. So first I'll show off the updated grid tool. Actually, I don't need to do anything for this. I can just run it. In document analytic output format has a lot of stuff built in by default. So you'll get a lot of like report navigation options, filtering, aggregation, sorting. More than that even is built right into the in-document analytic capabilities. And it also like has a caching feature so that it can be used kind of offline as well. So to access the grid tool, I'm gonna use this menu and click edit, and here's the grid tool. And we have this new sort order bucket. So I can drag a field in there and kind of get a better sense of it. So I can change the sort order for this. So now I'm seeing the highest revenue records, and I can get like kind of like a different perspective on my data. So I can see the web store definitely dominant, which makes sense. And I can see kind of like a high level overview. Okay, these are the product categories that had the highest sales. The highest on-web stuff seems to have been 2020 for stereo systems. So the ability to kind of dynamically change the sorting on these items adds like a lot of data discovery kind of potential, including just at runtime. So you don't need to be able, you don't need to like open up Designer to take advantage of these features and to explore your data in this way. I think it's very useful overall. Another thing I want to show you real quick is in our Excel output format. We have this freeze option, super simple to enable. And when I run the report, you'll see that the output already has the column headers frozen automatically. Actually, I think I previously did this. Yeah, once I open that up, you'll see that those are frozen already. I don't need to go into Excel and do it. It makes it easy to understand what's going on in my report. Because you can imagine if you have like lots and lots of columns and lots of rows, it might be hard to keep track of what each thing represents, especially if you have like across columns and that kind of thing. So very useful for that, for sure. And we also have some enhancements for chart types. So here's a line chart. And one of the features that I mentioned was the option to customize the markers for each series. So for each of these lines, I can set different markers. We already had options for a lot of the styling stuff, like for example, the series color and that kind of thing. But now we have a varied set of options to kind of customize the markers for each one. So I can use one of these options, which will just use the series color, or I can use this custom fill and border option, and I can select options different from what the line itself has enabled on it. And that will allow me kind of like to either highlight like a single line if I want to add markers to it, or I can add different markers to each line. So if I have like a lot of lines, it'll make it a lot easier to kind of like differentiate them and see the trends that are going on with each one. And so I could do that on each of my series. And then the other thing that we have is the narrative text option. And so that's if you have the EasyOp powered narrative chart add-on, it generates a narrative based on the data that you have in your chart. It's supported for bar, line, area, and pie charts. So when you do that, we hit the EasyOp engine and it generates a description of the trends in your data. So you can see here that it's like a breakdown of each line and kind of describes like the change over time, since that's what this chart is sort of based on, and kind of like has a high level summary of the trends that are visible in this chart. And then once I've created my charts and reports, I can add them to multiple different types of content. One of them is the designer page, which we'll see some more runtime features in the interactions section of this I guess, session. But for now, I'm going to take a look at the filtering options that we added, because those are also very useful, very cool options. And this is the dynamic date range UI that we added. So I can still select like, a fixed date range, but now I have the option to do a little bit more dynamic set of date ranges. So I can do like this year, this week, this month. I can also do like the last certain number of periods of time. So that adds even more flexibility. So let's say I want to see like the last 4 years. I can very easily like set that, and I can choose whether to include the current year or just go like up to this year. And then when I apply that, you can see that what's reflected is like a more dynamic, more flexible range. So I can see that information reflected here. So I've got my 2019 and my 2020 data. And then the other one that I have enabled here is the kind of flexibility of showing the all option in this control. So it's very easy. It's just a checkbox in Designer. And by default, we do show the all option because it's nice to have. You can see I've got a lot of values here. But if I want to filter on some brand, for example, that has a lot of different product categories applicable to it, for example, Sony, you can see I still get the all option. So I have, due to chaining, I've got only the applicable product categories displaying here. But if I select like a more specialty brand, maybe Sennheiser, I think they only do headphones. Then you'll see that I don't get the all option anymore. I just get accessories, because the all option kind of like doesn't serve any purpose because there's only one value anyway. So that's just like a nice little feature to make it a little bit easier to provide a good user experience in your pages without having to do a whole lot of kind of like planning ahead or unnecessary customization. So these are a lot of options that make it a little bit more user-friendly to use and to interpret your BI content. And then last thing I'll show you is our document mode. So the document mode, so the project here is as an update of our previous document mode UIs, and this is something we're going to be continuing to update in future releases as well. But to start with, we provided kind of like the most fundamental set of options. So you have the ability to customize first off your like page size and layout and all that stuff. And I can add multiple content items to this document. So you can see here that I have a list of designer content items as well as IA reports from my repository, and also images, since images are useful to add to documents as well. So to create my document, I can just drag these onto the page. I can use this handle to resize it. Or what I can do is I can resize using these spinners. And since, especially for images, it's useful to keep the aspect ratio the same, I can just select that checkbox. And then when I type that in, you can see it resized, and it did both dimensions at the same time so that it retains the aspect ratio that I want. And then I can drag multiple content items onto the page as well. I can easily resize. This one, you'll see when it loads that it's a very long report, so it's going to flow onto multiple pages. We handle overflow automatically. So you'll see how that looks. Add pie chart here. And so when I run the report, you'll see with the overflow that it won't like run over the report. It'll automatically overflow onto multiple pages. And I can also add more pages of my choosing using this page menu. I can duplicate a page, delete pages, reorder them, and I also have the option to rename them if I want to kind of like give myself a hint as to what each of those pages is used for. So I'll just drag another chart onto here. And then I will run this and see the PDF output. So yeah, overall, the updated document mode should make it easy to take advantage of and reuse your designer content in that sort of desktop file context so that you can add it to sort of the browser-based context of your page, similar to this, or you can use it in your desktop file context, and you can download this, email it, distribute it as needed. So you can see here also the overflow behavior. So my report flows onto multiple pages and has all the information in it. So it's not constrained to the size limit of my original page. So yeah, that's it for my section of the presentation. And Porter will show the very cool interactions.
Yeah, Alex, there's a lot of questions that are coming through.
Sure.
So let's
absolutely.
get these addressed.
Oh yeah, I wasn't sure if we were saying this in. Yeah, absolutely. I can address this.
Yeah, let me repeat the questions, Alex. You can go. So the first one is, can we define the fiscal year in the date filters if there is a button for a fiscal quarter or fiscal YTD, year to date?
I'm not sure if we have that right now, but it's definitely something I can talk to the product manager for that area as well, just to confirm on that.
Okay. The one more question is not clear on the question. Robert can retype it, but is it, can you demo overflow end? In the past, the scroll bars appeared in each piece of the content.
I think I understand. Possibly, we do have for some of the other document output formats. I think like obviously in a PDF, like the individual item isn't scrollable because it's like kind of like a fixed image type of thing. But I know like for active output, and I think for HTML output for the web-based stuff, each individual item in the document is scrollable as well. So I think I can take a look at that as well. We're using kind of like the default overflow settings that we also use in InfoAssist, I think.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Alex. There's one more question about the date range. When you choose a date range, it's always picking both the to and the from dates. And the question is, can you drag the mouse to choose the from and to? I believe the answer is yes. I don't see an issue.
Yeah, you can definitely do the to and from separately. I don't know if that answers the question. But yeah, we definitely have flexibility in the to and from, and you can select fixed dates as well. I'm not sure if that.
Okay. We'll take a couple more, and then I think we'll answer a few live. The other question is, in Designer, is it possible to set a default date parameter based on a database value?
Yes. So if you're creating a page, we do have an option to set the value of a parameter to a global variable. So that's one way that can be helpful to set like a even more dynamic date range. So you can set that global variable to be equivalent to some kind of like, you can set that to be equivalent to a dynamic date, and then use that as the default for your date filter. So you're not constrained to selecting a range of dates from the control itself. You can set it to another parameter and have that parameter kind of provide the default values.
Okay, cool. There's one more question about data migration. I can take that. So yeah, definitely, I think there is, like the way you see WebFOCUS, we are doing a lot of investments in the data migrator side also, but if there are specific things you would like to see or hear, iWay is definitely the best place for that. But also please, reach out to us directly or via the support team for anything you need or needs to be added. So we're always looking at making improvements on that also. Another question is, can you create an Excel document with side-by-side reports in the document designer?
That is something that we are working on, but not yet. I think right now our Excel output is kind of like separates onto multiple worksheets. So yeah, that's something that we do have in progress, but not for 9.1.
Okay, let's take one more quickly. Can we use master page in the PDF designer?
Not
Yeah.
not yet in Designer.
Yeah. Okay. And then are there search bars for filters?
I believe there is an option to enable the search bar, especially for the kind of like the drop-down type of filter control. I believe there's like an option for that in the Designer page kind of filter configuration options.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Let's move on. I think we can answer a few other a little later in the presentation also.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, folks, I'm going to pick up the ball here. And great to be with you, by the way. I'm going to demonstrate interactions. You might be familiar with this. It was released in 9.1. For those of you that are familiar with Developer Studio, actually it's App Studio, where the feature that this is a kind of a replacement for existed. It was called Tasks and Animations. Anyone know how to use that stuff? Oh my God, I tried it a little bit. Not going to lie, it was a little confusing. One of the things that I love about is we are modernizing Designer. When we look at important, powerful features that existed in App Studio or Info Assist, is it gives us a chance to take a fresh look at that capability and say, what do people really need to be able to do, and reimagine it. And I found once I started using the new interactions capability that it was so much more intuitive and easy to use and powerful. And I've seen that across a lot of the new modernization approaches that we've taken with the WebFOCUS Designer. So what are interactions? Interactions are actions that can be triggered within a page, a Designer page, on something like a button, a panel, or a control. And it's more than that, but think about that. And what are some examples of actions? So if we go into assemble mode, okay, and I'm just going to take you through a couple of the simplest examples of how it works, and then I'm going to show you some high-end examples as well. So you'll just have to be patient here. I noticed when I'm sharing, sometimes it takes a minute for assemble mode to load up here. So I'm going to take a blank template. All right, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move back a little bit here. I just want to find a simple piece of content. Assets under management should work. Okay, so whether you have a container or you have a grid on the page and you have parameters or you have buttons, those would be some of the most common examples of objects on the page that you might want to trigger an interaction with. So it's context sensitive. Anywhere on the page, you could right click and say add interaction. You're also going to get a button up here, so you could actually turn this on. You could drive the behavior from here if you want to. Okay, so simple example, right click, interaction, I want to add it. The only option for what I can do on a panel is a click. So you'll notice the event is a click. And one thing that I like to do is I like to actually name my interaction if it's something descriptive, so I know what it is. Okay, so just be aware that you can rename your interaction. You can add as many as you want. Now, some of the options that I've got available to me based on the click, run content, right? I might want to run, if I click on the panel, I might want to run something into a new window. I might want to overlay it to a different panel or something like that, to a different page. I might want to show an object like an additional parameter control or additional panel, or hide something. I might want it to trigger the running of a deferred report or actually schedule content. Okay, I'm not going to do anything with that at the moment. I'm going to drag a blank container over here. I'm going to add a grid to that. I'm going to show you some of the other options. So one of the cool things that we added as I go to controls is we know that a lot of times people may want buttons on the page that simply trigger the scheduler. And you may want to preset something like the report that is going to be run or the delivery method. So this, you could do that manually by dragging a button over, but we're trying to save you a couple clicks with some of the commonly done things. So if I drag a schedule button over, it's going to ask me what report or document do I want to run. Okay, and then I'm going to select the mode. And that can be all you can let the user choose, or you can say, let's make it email. Okay, and then you can select the target. Where do you want the Reportcaster window to go? Do you want it page overlay, new window, same window? Let's just do, new window. And so that's how easy it would be to actually add a schedule button to the page. Okay, and you could obviously change the name to make it more descriptive or add a title. If you want to do that manually, be aware there's more things that could be done if you just have a normal button and I add an interaction to the button. It's going to be a click event. That's what's an option for me. You'll notice one of the actions here is schedule, right? I went through this with you with some of the options on the panel. So you can always do that manually if you want, but you've got the schedule button there that's kind of nice and works for you out of the box. Another thing that I think is cool is what can be done conditionally with actual controls. Let's add a control to the page, drop down. And over here in my settings, right, we added that nice new filter binding and static parameter settings a couple releases back. I'm just going to create a new one here with a couple values. One is Boston. One is Los Angeles. So what's cool is as I trigger an interaction on an actual control of values, the event that's available to me is a selection change. Now the actions are the same as they were before. Let's say that if I select a specific value, I want to trigger something, I want to hide something, I want to reveal additional parameters, it can be whatever you want. So I'm going to say, little black magic here. Let's hide the assets under management object when I select a specific value within the control. So I'm going to select hide object, and I'm going to pick the object that I want to hide. Okay, so this is your outline view of everything that's in the page. Could be containers, could be charts, could be parameters, could be buttons. Assets under management is what I want to hide. And if I right click on this, you'll notice I can add a condition. So it could be just based on one of the values, or you can trigger different things based on different selections that are made. So you'll notice when I run this in a new window, okay, first schedule button, you'll notice popping into a new window. Boom. I think it should have the task pre-populated, as it does. And it should have the distribution pre-populated, as it does. As I go back here and I say, select Boston, boom, assets under management vanishes. Okay, that's my WebFOCUS magic routine for the day. Those are some of the basics. Let me show you some really cool high-end examples and top customer requests that I think are going to help you with your high-end applications, right? We've been adding all of these really cool kind of no-code tools, things that used to be done in the code or used to be difficult, really making them much easier to use. So one that I like, and Angie relayed this to me from a customer, is that let's say that I've got a dashboard like this. It's a quadrant. The quadrant has 4 tab containers. And let's say the tabs are organized maybe by a primary metric or dimension. The second tab maybe focuses on a different metric or dimension. You may want to trigger the selection of one tab, opening that corresponding tab on all of the other containers. So watch what happens when I click AUM by sector type. Okay, you'll notice all of the rest of these are sector. It doesn't have to be that. You can do whatever you want. You'll notice what happens is it reloads and the target or the focus has been set on that second tab. Okay, so how did I do that? You'll notice I named it Update Tabs to AUM Visualizations. I basically triggered the interaction off of this tab because when the user clicks on this tab, what I wanted to do is I said, when it's active, and that was the event type available to me on the tab. And then I created 3 different tasks with the option of run content. I am choosing what to be run. Okay, so remember it's AUM by sector, and it is pointing to a container, and that is container 3. Okay, and as I pick on this, again, it gives you access to the outline view, makes it pretty easy to select. I did the same for this container in this container. Okay, and as simple as that, not bad, right? Probably took me 5 minutes. Okay, but ultimately incredibly flexible to drive that interaction and that behavior to suit your use case or whatever your need is. Another example, and this is probably my favorite, is navigational options. We know that with WebFOCUS, we're able to create highly parameter-driven pages, let's see, right? That like might start simple like this. You might make some selections. You might want the user to click like a results button and actually take them to a second page and retain their selections. You may want the user to be able to go back and forth, multiple levels of progressions. Okay, for like the most highly parameter-driven apps, that's a really popular usability technique. So, navigation. As I look at this page, now this page and this page, and excuse my voice, I'm a little sick, no big deal. I'm gonna play hurt. Both of these are basically that the foundation of this is a report with a lot of parameters. Okay, and if you want to look at it, this is what it looks like. I created this probably 6 years ago. And at the time, there were a couple things were not supported in the GUI. So I had no big deal, started in the GUI, dropped it in the code. This is all supported 100% in the code, but many of you will probably appreciate some of the things going on here. It's a lot of variable measurement. User can select any number of measures. It's a lot of variable dimensions, select any number of dimensions. It is variable output format and a lot of filters with default values. Okay, so when I designed this, I said, it's too much. If I've got 30 parameters on the page, the user's going to be overwhelmed. Many of our customers report the same experience. So how would you simplify that for the user? Well, one technique that we like is give them a simpler landing page. Think about booking an airline ticket on Expedia, right? They're not asking you what time of day you want the flight, what airline you want it to use. Do you want to leave in the morning? Any of, do you want it shortest duration? They're not asking asking you all those things on the first page. So what a lot of people do is they simplify it. They have a landing page like this, maybe 4 parameters. Now to progress you to the secondary selections, right, where you might want things like sorting, measurement, output format, secondary filters, there's a need for navigation. So as I look at this, the interaction is that navigation. On the results button, I added a new interaction. On the button, I'm selecting that as a click event. I want it to run content. Okay, and the content that I'm going to have it run is a results page, another designer page. Launch this page. And it could be a page overlay. It could be the same window, a new window. This could be within a portal. It could go to a different container, whatever works best for you in terms of your analysis of the user experience in the application that you have. Another key thing to understand, if you want to do something like this, and I recommend everyone do this, your users are going to love it. You need to be able to pass the parameter values from page to page. This is a feature we added long ago. It's called global variable. Okay, so if you were to pick one of your parameter controls, you'll notice there's this global name variable. Make sure you give it a name that is the same as that parameter. Let's see, that's returns. Returns exist up here on my other page. It's got the same global name. It's going to pass the parameter values from page to page. Not a new feature, but an important one if you want to perform this type of navigation where you're passing parameters from page to page. So we saw how I added the interaction. Let's take a look at what that experience is like. So I'm sensitive to expenses, sure. Am I interested in recommended funds? Actually, no fee funds. I've trimmed my selections. That was easy. I'm not overwhelmed. I click results, page overlay, get transitioned to that results page. It's retained my selections. It's exposing secondary selections. Yeah, I want low volatility stocks, maybe lower than that even. Okay, I've got my other parameters available to me right here. Oops, I made a mistake. I want to start over. Let's return to selections. Okay, so I just did that same navigation on the results page that I did on the selections page. Return to selections based on a click, run content, go back to Jeff's selections. That was my buddy Jeff Ogile that created this page long ago. Some of you may remember him, and run it in the same window. Okay, so I love the just for fun, I added a schedule button, right? You might want to schedule that report as well. Okay, so love the navigation use case. And the last one is that we actually see a lot of our customers wanting to drive reasonably complex workflow based on the selection and showing and hiding panels or parameters. I think that's a pretty popular use case where if the user makes a certain type of selection, you may want to reveal additional parameters or hide additional parameters. So I created a simple example here. It's basically that same example. You'll notice beast mode is where I've got everything available to me. I've got primary filters, secondary filters, variable measurement and dimensions. Well, some people might want a simpler example, right? So if I click simple, it's actually hiding a lot of those, okay? You might have a scenario where you want people to start simple, and then, you know, if you're not doing that navigational approach that I suggested, advanced may expose secondary selections, beast mode may be everything, okay? So how did I do that? So this, I mean, with a lot of parameters, this can be a lot of tasks. No big deal. I mean, this one took me no more than 15, 20 minutes, okay? Now, I had the report built already, right, in the parameters, but so simple mode is really more about hiding things, right? So I said, again, this is a control with values. You'll notice it has a condition. I said, this control on selection change, if the value is simple, hide the object, and that object is volatility. And I did the same for net assets and risk and options and everything, but those primary filters. Advanced, what I'm doing is I'm actually showing some of these things, and some are still being hidden as well. Whereas beast mode is saying show everything, and it's got that conditional value as well. So endless possibilities. That's what I love about this. This capability, and I think it's one of the most exciting capabilities we've actually added to Designer in a couple of releases, and there's really a lot to choose from there. But I was knowing some of the applications that I've built, some of the demos that I've built in the past, hearing from customers, to me the light bulb went off, and I said, this is going to allow me to do with no code what I used to have to call my buddy Jeff Restandi up and say, can you code me something to handle the navigation? Now I can do it myself. So, Angie, Alex, you're welcome to jump in if you think there's anything big with interactions, popular use cases I might have missed. But that will conclude the demonstration. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Porter. We do have some questions. Do we want to take those out loud and go through some of those?
Sure.
All right. So, will HTML pages created using WebFOCUS 8 Composer be compatible with WebFOCUS 9?
So I assume that is an HTML Composer page created in Application Studio, and basically that page can be, I believe that page could be included on a designer canvas, but there's not going to be like a convert tool, right, that takes, and Alex and Angie, you can jump in here. I believe it is a different programming framework that was used for HTML Canvas versus the Designer Canvas?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So the WebFOCUS 8 App Studio HTML Canvas pages, you can use them and still run them, and they'll still be active in WebFOCUS 9, and App Studio is still there in WebFOCUS 9 as well. You can still edit in App Studio. And like Porter said, you can include them in the designer pages as pieces of content in the panels.
All right. Once all the features of App Studio are made available in Designer, can the reports created using App Studio be edited through Designer interface, or will they have to be recreated through Designer?
So I believe that they'll have to be recreated within Designer. Again, likewise for HTML Canvas, there's not going to be like a conversion utility for something that was done in Report Painter, with like complex alignment grid headings, subfootings, subheaders, etc. The plan is to add all that functionality to the Designer Canvas, and it would just be hard, right, to map all of those things from the alignment grid to the subfooting, embedded variables and images into the Designer Canvas that is a kind of a different framework, one that's more focused on interactivity, responsive web design, things like that.
Yeah, I do want to add for App Studio stuff. I mean, for info assist reports, we are currently working on being able to open those in Designer, and for certain App Studio reports, that should also be supported. Of course, in App Studio, you had a lot of capabilities to do some very complex reporting with like a lot of dialogue manager and a lot of complexity in those. So those, we might face some challenges there. But for kind of like more basic stuff, I think our plan is to be able to migrate those into Designer. So I guess it will depend on.
And remember that you can still drop a report created in Report Painter onto the canvas of a Designer page, and available parameters will be detected, and you can place them in those new more modern ways onto the page. So, like this report right here, I did not create in Designer, but I'm reusing it. I'm kind of reusing the parts of the report that I want. I don't need to change it. But what I want is a more modern experience around the page and the sizing and the parameters.
All right. Question for Porter. Is there already or plan to add a pre-process for a page to allow effects to be run first to provide small data sets to drive filters? They've done this with a custom approach, but wondering if it's been requested to become a feature.
I mean, is this hold files? Would a hold file get the trick done here if the page or the parameters were populated based on a hold file that was kind of run on demand before the page was run? I'm asking. I know that the use case could go beyond that when you're talking about pre-processing, but I'm just wondering if we're talking about parameters, we want certain things run before the page loads, if the hold file or staging table capability would accomplish that.
Okay, we'll see if that person kind of responds back to your question.
Yep.
Is it possible to create custom events? Example, are parms valid? They then have JS to handle complex validation like a mod 10 check.
I believe that's a 9.2 feature.
Ooh, a little hint there. Let's see. When an object is hidden, can the panels resize and fit to the window instead of showing the blank space?
I would like that. Alex, Angie, can we do that? Will we do it?
Yeah,
but it's, yes, that would be nice.
Resizing the panels, like making them grow, is not currently there, but definitely something to look into. I love that idea. Mm-hmm. And then like rearranging, I think there is some rearranging that happens already, but yeah, we'll definitely look into the resizing as well.
All right, Porter, back to that original question to you. They have responded with basically making hold files on the fly when they hit the page. Need to run fex, get data, set defaults, etc. then call the page right after the FEX has run.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to make hold files on the fly, I assume that is looking to be driven by some sort of variable selections on controls or based on some other information. So suffice to say, that's the real strength of WebFOCUS, right? You're able to do it in the past, you can do it today. So, you know, we built a more graphical and I think intuitive experience for creating hold files in the data tab of Designer. You know, whatever you do there could be fed by parameters as, you know, as well.
Great, thank you. A couple more here, Porter, our team. We use App Studio to do hold files, allowing us to integrate different data sources. Will we be able to do this in Designer?
I'm pretty sure that was introduced in release. Was it 9.0?
I believe it was 9.0.
Yep.
Yeah, we have
the
data tab, that flow tool. You can
check out the data tab in release 9 of the Designer hold files.
All right. Will the Excel add-in be able to use a Designer page to act as a front-end form for entering prompts? Today, we're restricted to using an HTML Composer page in App Studio.
I don't think so, but I will defer to my buddies here.
Yeah, I would need to follow up, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
All right.
So that sounds like a very specific use case. So maybe let's follow up afterwards and make sure we can understand the full question there.
Okay, we can definitely do that. Follow up with that individual. All right, Porter, when we went to 8207, we lost the ability, for example, to chart unless using Info Assist and encountered some migration issues. DS for us did not really compete with App Studio at the time. We remained using App Studio. If we were to upgrade from 8207 to 9.1 and start to reevaluate Designer, we need to be sure existing content will continue to run in App Studio without major overhauls, and development can continue as usual. While we reevaluate, Designer say it. Sorry, yeah.
I don't know why. Yeah, that's a new one to me. And at 8207 versus 9.1, it's, you know, there's a lot of releases in between those two, and I can, you know, just say objectively that the stability of the product has made great strides in that time. And so I see no reason why App Studio content would not continue to run if you were to upgrade to 9.1. You're getting the best release we've ever made, basically in 9.1, the most stable, functionally complete release. So it's, you know, obviously got to go through that process, and hard to declare it without actually knowing your, you know, the specifics of your application and environment. But I advise everyone to go to the most modern release. Absolutely.
All right. Looks like Alex, you're taking one. This one might have been earlier in the presentations, guys. Will FML finally be in Designer?
That would be something we'd have to look at long term, I think.
Okay. All right, guys. Any other questions for our team? Feel free to submit to the Q&A. This is some great questions coming in. All right, while you guys, I'll give you guys a few minutes if you have any other questions or think of any other questions. In the meantime, as Porter said and Alex said, that pretty much wraps up our agenda for you today. So we are going to give you some time back of your morning and afternoon, but want to thank Porter and Alex for presenting for us today and showing us this awesome content and these demos. Thank you both so much. Again, guys, I will send out a link to the evaluation form right after the meeting. If you could please fill that out for us, that would be wonderful. I will also quickly throw it into the chat because it looks like we do have a couple more questions coming in, so I can put that link in there. Porter, Alex, Angie, do you guys want to take a couple of these questions coming in?
Sure.
We have, does precision reporting still exist?
App Studio, we do still have precision reporting there.
Any upgrade and report caster plans specifically to schedule events in sequence?
Yes, I don't know if Angie actually wants to take this one, maybe.
Yeah, this is my favorite topic this year because we were planning a really big update to Reportcaster for later this year. Not in the 9.2 release that's coming soon, but later this year. And it's mostly going to be a UI update. So I think the specific question there, schedule events in sequence, we'll have to kind of review and see if that can be part of it as well, or if that's something that would be sort of like a post UI update feature. But yeah, feel free to go through support and make sure that request gets to us in the product development team.
Okay. Let's see, there was some pushback about the change to calendar controls in interface 9.0 and 9.1. Can you talk about any of the new options, possibly to get the 8207 look?
I think we took a look at this one. Angie, you might know this one better than me as well. I don't remember if we had made any changes in that area.
Yeah, so that's something that's upcoming in 9.2, that release coming soon. We essentially added a checkbox option of if you want those predefined values or not. If you say no, you'll be presented with just a regular calendar control similar to what it was in the earlier releases.
Great, thanks. We'll do one more. These people are currently in version 8202 and using App Studio. A user goes to a WebFOCUS web page, hits a button, and runs a report, which appears in a web browser. In version 9, how does the user run the report such that it appears in a fancy designer page as opposed to a less fancy normal browser tab?
Porter, I think that may actually be for you with the interactions.
Yeah, yeah. So I would think of the the fancy designer page as rather than normal browser tab as being the page or overlay option, kind of like a modal dialog that displays.
All right, guys. Any other questions?
So I see one where Robert said he was having a trouble with numerics not being able to be used as dimensions. I've solved that in the past, sometimes just by dragging it from the list of measures to the list of dimensions in my master file. Sometimes you can pursue a format change as well. Like if it's numeric, I'd be curious if it was decimal or it was integer. You could potentially make it alphanumeric. That does also cause some problems. So you should have some options there.
Yeah, it might be specific scenarios that might, be different than others, but in general, yeah, as Porter said, and also if you're creating charts and reports, you should have an option to either add as dimension, or if you're creating a report, drag it into that rows bucket to use it as a sort field, and it should just behave as like an unaggregated kind of numeric sort field. So kind of provide that same behavior.
All right. Will the developer have access to see the code behind Designer to tweak anything specific which may not be possibly directed through Designer?
Yes, we have. If you go to the outline when you're creating a chart or report in Designer, you can right click. There's like a top node in the outline. And that will show you like a preview, or that will show you actually the source syntax. And then if you want to make edits to that, you can either save your chart or report and open the text editor, or you can copy that syntax into the text editor and do edits there. So you can kind of like take it from Designer into the text editor that's available from the hub.
All right. Any plans to allow the default run option for reports to in a new window rather than having to right click and choose that?
So there are a lot of new defaults settings that we introduced that developers can add to their page, but I don't think it's going to extend to that, where like every time you were to drop a run report button on the page, it would default to new window, right? That's going to be interactions, and I don't think our kind of default settings for content creators and developers extended to objects being used by interactions, but it should be pretty fast to manually set that interaction button. Interactions was introduced in 9.1. And I'm happy to share a change management of the little demo application that I built if you want it.
Perfect. All right, guys. These were some fantastic questions. Thank you for submitting these. Last call. Any final questions for our presenters? All right. Okay, guys, on that note, like I said, we are finishing up a little early, so we will give you this time back to your day. Thank you again so much for joining us. You will have access to the recording again within about 24 hours. It will be on the website for on-demand viewing. Also, be sure to check out the events page for our upcoming April events. Like I said at the beginning, we'll be on the road in St. Louis and Kansas City in April, and then we will have our virtual April user group towards the end of the month. So make sure to check out those events and sign up. And there will also be a Focus Friday for the month of April. So be sure to stop by and say hi to the Walters and Mark. If you guys don't have any more questions, I will let you go. Thank you again for attending, and we'll talk soon.